in the past, quite possibly even in 2019. Not he came back from Munich, not from Berlin. Quick fact check for me. I think for many people who possibly voted Tory in 2019, not being the Tories is more than enough to get your cross in good start politics. But that brittleness of that seems to me to be built upon, in part, the determination of the Labour leadership to second guess attacks, to preempt attacks. The net zero decision will have upset a lot of good people, a lot of sincere people. There are one or two people in public life whose lead I follow, like a seagull behind a trawler. Martin Lewis is one of them, who was on the paper yesterday. I think about him on almost all things fiscal. Dale Vince, increasingly, is one of the people I turn to when I'm looking at what's going on environmentally. He has come out in support of Keir Starmer, at least because the alternative is so dismal. But making a pledge to spend 28 billion on something, and then a couple of years later,
Nächste Haltestelle, Heinsberg.
Violently, largely as a consequence of letting distrust anywhere near Downing Street, changing that pledge seems to me to be sensible. No matter how hard this may appear, brigade can continue to scandal. So that's the problem. Starmer is not inspiring people, good or for ill. I think he is quite an inspiring character when you dig into his backstory and when you dig into what he does and what he believes in. But if he's not getting that across to the people, that is part of his fault. Millennials, which is born between 1981 to 1996, are millennials. So that's a crucial demographic, 1981 to 1996, and you can nibble around the edges of it. They are less likely to vote. The Resolution Foundation low turnout among millennials could offer the Conservative Party a fighting chance. Labour is facing a crisis among Muslim voters as support plunges, largely as a consequence of Keir Starmer being perceived as they say in Yorkshire, neither now nor summer when it comes to the crisis in the Middle East, or in fact,
Hallo, ich hätte gerne ein Ticket. Wie viel würde das kosten?
Israel's continuing attacks upon Gaza. There are numbers here, there are statistics that suggest that hemorrhaging in support among Muslim voters. And I was chatting to my LinkedIn.
Ich hätte gerne einen Fahrschein.
He told me he wasn't just because he didn't see the point. It wasn't that he had particularly strong feelings of antipathy towards anybody, although I was surprised he didn't feel negatively towards the Tories. But if you're 19, all you've ever known, you're 5 all you've ever known is the demonisation of refugees. All you've ever known is austerity and cuts. You don't know what you've got till it's gone, as Joni Mitchell famously observed. But if you never knew what you had, you don't notice that it's gone. You're growing up in a town with no library, or you were a kid with no short start, or your council funding for anything from, I don't know, clearing snow off the pavements right through to providing youth clubs for young people. You never knew that. There's a whole generation, a whole cohort of first-time voters who have only ever known austerity and latterly culture wars. They don't even know what politics looks like when politicians are promising to improve things rather than make things worse for foreigners or single mothers or unemployed. It's extraordinary. And of course they don't even fully appreciate the idiocy of Brexit because they were planning on exercising their freedom of movement when we were passing Brexit through because they were too young to have thought about it. So you've got young people, you've got millennials who are older than young people, which is quite hard for 52-year-olds like me to grasp because in my mind, in my mental shorthand, millennials are still in short trousers. You've got millennials, you've got young people, you've got Muslims, you've got possibly today environmentalists, as in really committed environmentalists who recognise the urgency of the kind of policy that Labour has now diluted for, I think, fiscal but quite possibly electoral reasons as well. And you've got a 25-point lead even with you guys, but you've got a sense that it's still all to play for. That he, Keir Starmer, is still carrying a mink vase across a ice rink. So, you're welcome. You don't have to be in any of the categories I've just described. couple of weeks ago, I was going to an interview for the Olympic cyclist. That was amazing. I'll play you an interview shortly that shows you just how awesome that is. To rise to the ranks of Chief Secretary of the Treasury, the second most important job in the Treasury after Chancellor of the Exchequer. And to not know how debt goes. Okay? I mean, it is one of the most extraordinary jobs.
Nächste Haltestelle. Abzweig Grambusch.
But why would you work? Any answer you've got, you don't need to be in one of the categories I've described. I am fascinated today to learn two things. Number one, your personal position and what explains it. And number two, just to get a level, a measure, a hint of the brittleness of this opinion culture. 25 pounds in normal circumstances, you can pop in the champagne. But to me, it just feels brittle, it feels fragile. And part of that is probably fears about turnout and things like that. About disillusion. There's a million reasons why you're thinking of not voting. I want to know what they are. The number you need to have is 034560673. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. It's 17 minutes after 10 and if you get us on the
James O'Brien on LBC. James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 20 minutes after 10. Just have a listen to this before we hit the phone. I don't know whether it is a symptom or a cause, or neither, of voter disengagement or a tuning out of voters, to rephrase a very senior politician. Tuning out, sense that voters are tuning out. Whether it's because the government is just so, I do not know. But this is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott. I can't stress it strongly enough the job. You remember when I think she was shadowed and taken by them, and she got her son's horribly wrong. The world stopped for a moment. Everybody was obsessed with it. It was national news. It was on front pages. To shadow Home Secretary, it was unlikely leadership of the party at the time that she was ever going to get it. This is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. This is not an opposition politician. This is somebody who has responsibility for the country's finances. I know what is trust as a Chief Secretary to the Treasury. So the bar is not as high as it may want to. But this is extraordinary.
What is
Hallo, ich hätte gerne einen Fahrschein.
you can be even talking about tax cuts when a central pledge is getting debt down and debt is going up?
So the central pledge is one of our fiscal rules, which is that debt needs to be falling over the 5-year fiscal forecast as a percentage of
Morgen.
GDP.
Ich hätte gerne ein Ticket.
No, it's higher in 5 years than now.
Not as a percentage of GDP.
Yeah, no, it's higher. It's going up. It's lower in the 5th year relative to the 4th year. So it goes down at the end of the projection, but in 5 years, it's higher at the end of the projection. Yeah, 23.4, 89% of GDP. 28.9, it's 93% of GDP. Debt goes up. It falls at the end of 5 years.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean debt is coming down. That means debt is going up. It's higher. It's higher in 5 years than now.
It's falling as a percentage of GDP.
No, it's higher as a percentage of GDP.
I'm not sure. I think
Well, this is really basic.
Nächste Haltestelle. Rothausspielplatz.
Public sector debt ex banking is 28.9, 92.8%, 23.4, 89%. So it's up in 5 years. Now, I'm amazed that we don't know the debt is rising, but
No, it's
your
not.
one is
It's a
planning.
percentage of
Percentage of GDP.
this is. I think I need to have the figures. I've got different figures, so I think we just need to.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's just suppose if debt is higher on the OBR forecast in 5 years than now, you couldn't possibly be cutting taxes while your pledge is that debt should fall.
The point is we have our fiscal rules, and within those we have an amount of headroom. So we will only do things that are fiscally responsible and sit within our fiscal rules.
It's a really, really big point, this, isn't it? So one of us has obviously got it wrong. I think I'm looking at the right table, and I think I'm looking at the right line. And it's possible that the figures will all change, but at the moment it looks to me like debt is higher in 5 years than it is now. And you're still talking about tax cuts.
It's extraordinary for, well, I mean, given this was expecting me to explain to you, she sounds like so modest that he thought for a moment he might be wrong. Think about that. You're an economics whiz by any measure. They widely regarded as brains, read books, economics. You're in a studio with the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury says to you in terms, well, of course the moon is made of cheese. And because he's so modest or so decent, he thinks, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the moon is made of cheese. You can hear it in his voice. Let me just check that. You can't quite believe what's coming out of the mouth of the Chief Secretary to the Treasury because it is so completely at odds with observable reality. But it won't matter. She won't lose her
Nächste
job.
Haltestelle,
She won't be on front pages.
Uwe-Kurven-Gartenweg.
She won't be talked about for the next 2 months as an example of one of the worst political. Now, why could that possibly be? Why would an opposition politician called Diane get kicked for years for messing up one song in one studio while in opposition, while a politician called Laura Trott messes up her understanding of the entire fiscal landscape in one interview in one studio? And I don't know that there'll be anywhere else today in the UK media that's still talking about it. Make of that what you want. What's the difference between Laura Trott? 25 over 10 is the time. Back to the question, why on earth anyone would be thinking of not voting in this year's general election? Johnny's involved. Johnny, what would you like to say?
Good morning, congratulations on the book. Two things. Diane Abbott, we know why. And two, Evan Davis has got a book out called Post-Truth.
That's a while ago. It was a very good book.
Yeah, maybe we should update it, or maybe someone else. 6 things. Hillsborough, Aubrey, Grenfell, Windrush, Post Office, contaminated blood. Question to you. What has politics done for those 6 things?
Well, Hillsborough worked for Ground Office to to reopen the inquiry. The family didn't achieve any sort of resolution or closure, and most of them, dissatisfied though they may be with the absolute consequences for the people responsible, most of them acknowledge that the truth has finally come out and the apologies from people in power have been issued. Grenfell is a work in progress, and I share elements of your pessimism. The Post Office scandal was a consequence of journalism in 2015 by the BBC and Nick Wallace and others. The truth finally came out, albeit that Conservative ministers post-2015 did absolutely nothing about it until the ITV drop kicked in and even gave all the vendors a nightmare. Windrush, I would chalk up
Nächste Haltestelle,
as a complete scar upon recent British history that the Tory party have done absolutely nothing to heal. But almost all of these are reasons to vote Labour, they're not reasons not to vote Tory.
Very persuasive. But it's too close to Corbyn. You do know that? You do this for a living. 15 hours a week.
14, mate, don't forget. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So there is your answer. I mean, you've just listed, and in fact, at that interview, I won't plug the BBC unduly, but during that interview, when she was trying to smear Keir, Evan Davis hit her with a long list of Tory U-turns as well. Most obviously off the top
Einen Fahrschein bitte.
HS2 with the absence of 14 instances, but those are all reasons, almost every one of those. I mean, Hillsborough, the collusion between Margaret Thatcher, her press secretary, Bernard Ingham, the local Conservative MP in Sheffield, and of course no longer press represented by the disgraced former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Kent.
Don't say his name.
No, all right, sorry. No, sorry. I'll get some mystery. So those are all reasons to vote. Those are all reasons to change the driver of the bus.
Nächste Haltestelle,
I mean, the good thing is
Wegberg Bildungscampus.
is nowhere near Labour, and Cummings is nowhere near Conservative. And actually vote together.
You found a show that's about people who are thinking of not voting.
Yeah, because I don't want to vote this time. Because what is it good because of Hillsborough, Grenfell, Aubrey, Windrush, Post Office,
Without decent leadership, you're never going to get a resolution. The other scandals, the other national tragedies, like the people I've got on Hillsborough, directly as a consequence. In fact, I'm like 2 full disclosure episodes. Like I said, I need to go to you, John, and to other people. Listen to my Amber which goes into incredible and emotional detail about that. And included by the entire fan base of Liverpool Football Club on a football pitch. Gordon Brown telling Gordon Brown got to do that. I mean, it's an amazing story of politicians making a difference in precisely the arenas you described. And listen to the more recent one with Nick Wallace, a journalist who led the line in many ways on the investigation into the Post Office scandal. And just I mean, if you're a fan of facts, if you like, beneath the surface of client journalism, inspired this conversation are millennials who fall into the category of being born between 1981 and 1996. The Resolution Foundation finds that the Muslims who are
Nächste Haltestelle. Wegberg Mosaika-Straße.
as a consequence of the Islam's stance on Gaza. And young people, this is my own observations, people younger than millennials who, for some reason, for reasons I don't fully understand, just feel that there's almost no point doing it. You don't need to be in any of those categories by any stretch of the imagination. Johnny clearly isn't, but if you are, you're already in the news, and I want to know why. If you're not, then you're going to be in the news later this year if things don't change, and I want to know why. Why would anybody in the current political climate entertain for a nanosecond the notion of not voting? 0345 606 0973. Thomas, what's his name? For his time, Terry's legal team back in the High Court today trying to bring the cases that were considered in the last
Nächste Haltestelle. Wegberg Busbahnhof.
into play. So I don't know if you remember, it's one of the reasons why Piers Morgan's response to the verdict was so disingenuous and in many ways dishonest, because the majority of cases are an example that his own plaintiffs brought before the court were not considered by the judge. The verdict guilty was reached by looking only at some cases. So his lawyers are in the High Court at the moment trying to get all the other cases considered as well. That will work with damages, for example. They will find out in the next hour or so whether or not that has been successful. And it's another reason to stay tuned. I'll bring that to you as soon as it happens. Indeed, we will hear from a member of Harry's team, if not on the steps of the High Court, then live on the programme. 10:35 is the time. Back to this question of why on earth you would vote, given the madness of the current political landscape, and as Emma points out, the necessity of a change of government. Very simply, the best slogan going into this election would just be Tories out. They could ensure this tomorrow if they made pacts with other progressive parties, but they are too pig-headed. I'm gutted over the Green stuff, even though I saw it coming. I'm only paying my membership sub for that slogan, and Tories out, because Labour currently are a bitter disappointment. Yeah, that's hope versus despair. Hope of the despair, it's not the case. Harry's in it. Harry, what would you like to say?
So I'm quite young, I'm 19, and I think that the schools and colleges, they don't do enough to make you understand politics. So I think for a lot of young people, that people won't vote because they also look like it's like what's the point, and they don't understand.
I don't know. I mean, neither of us know whether it's always been, whether it was like that when I was 19 a million years ago.
Nächste Haltestelle. Wegberg Bahnhof.
But that notion of not appreciating or believing that a change in government can make a change in your life, that seems to be the problem.
Yeah, I just think that politicians, politics is just one game, and everybody, most of the time they're just lying. You know what I mean? For example, when we was leaving the EU, there'd be better trading deals and things like that, and the cost of living has never been as high as what it is at the moment.
But isn't that a reason to get rid of the people that told you it would be a good idea? And they are conveniently still in power. Rishi Sunak was a leaver. The entire cabinet has to pretend still, 7-8 years later, that Brexit was a good idea, whereas Keir Starmer was one of the leaders of the calls for a second referendum. One of the loudest voices pointing out that this actually increased the growth and now so
yeah, but they have does anybody actually have a plan of action that they can put into place to ensure that what they're saying they're going to do, they are going to do?
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah, no, you're right.
What they're going to say, then what's the point?
Well, you can't prove it, can you, until you're in power? What would work for you then? Is there anything that would stiffen your resolve, that would make you think, yeah, all right, then I'll pop down to the polling station on Thursday and I will actually vote for X, Y, or Z? What would you like to see? Do you know?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't really. If one of the parties was just to make it evidence that they're absolutely making change, rather than just be like every other politician who said we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they can do something something unique and something that makes people think, you know what, yeah, they are going to do something about it, and they're going to make life better for us.
And you're not getting that at all?
Not really. I mean, Rishi Sunak, not Rishi Sunak.
Yes, not.
Yeah, it's just.
It's quite significant. You just got them mixed up, really, isn't it, Harry? That's quite speaks volumes.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand politics too much myself.
Don't worry, mate. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury doesn't know what GDP is, so don't beat yourself up. You could be Chancellor by the weekend without understanding anything. But I mean, so 19 is a fascinating age, because you were 5 when the Tories got into power. Although Laura Trott might consider that you were 17, I'm not sure. You were 5 14 years ago. You've never known any different. The things that have
drastically down.
Well, exactly. So I would have thought that would be a reason to vote for a change. But what you're telling me is that the people who represent change are not striking you as a big enough change, or indeed in some senses any change at all.
No, I just feel like we're gonna change in power. It's just gonna be more chaos. It's like potentially to make things much worse.
And there is the challenge for the Labour Party. Take it from me, as an older but definitely not a better man, take it from me that it will not be worse. It could not be worse. What we've seen in the last few years is, unprecedented in its awfulness. You've mentioned Brexit, turning the country into the first in history to vote to impose economic sanctions on itself. You've seen people like Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Lee Anderson, and now Laura Trott rise to prominent positions in the governing party despite barely having a brain cell between them. I mean, these are extraordinary times, but if you've known no different, the Labour Party struggles, of course, to get its package, its offer, its presentation before you, because 80% of the media is controlled by Tory government. I understand exactly where you are. Breaks my heart to hear it. Two 19-year-olds I've spoken to this week, both engaged to a degree politically, both disillusioned, sufficiently disillusioned and even disenfranchised to contemplate not voting at all. And I'll tell you something that I think everybody will agree with. That's brilliant news for the Tories. That is bad news for Labour, good news for the Tories. People not voting for change is